Labor 4. The myth. Capture of the doe or hind. The great presiding one who sits within the council chamber of the Lord spoke to the teacher standing by his side. Where is the Son of Man who is the Son of God? How fares he? How is he tested, and with what service is he now engaged? The teacher said, casting his eye upon the Son of Man, who is the Son of God, not at this time, O great presiding one. The third great test provided much of teaching sustenance to a learner such as he. He ponders and reflects. Provide a test which will evoke his wisest choice. Send him to labor in a field wherein he must decide which voice of all the many voices will arouse the obedience of his heart. Provide likewise a test of great simplicity upon the outer plane, and yet a test which will awaken on the inner side of life the fullness of his wisdom and the rightness of his power to choose. Let him proceed with the fourth test. Before the fourth great gate stood Hercules, a son of man and yet a son of God. At first was silence deep. He uttered not a word or made a sound. Beyond the gate the landscape stretched in contours fair, and on the far horizon stood the temple of the Lord, the shrine of the sun god, the gleaming battlements. Upon a hill nearby there stood a slender fawn, and Hercules, who is a son of man and yet a son of God, both watched and listened, and listening heard a voice. The voice came out from that bright circle of the moon, which is the home of Artemis. And Artemis, the fair, spoke words of warning to the Son of Man. The doe is mine, so touch it not, she said. For ages long I nurtured it and tended it when young. The doe is mine, and mine it must remain. Then into view Diana sprang, the huntress of the heavens, the daughter of the sun. Leaping on sandaled feet towards the doe, she likewise claimed possession. Not so, she said. Artemis, fairest maid, the doe is mine, and mine it must remain. Too young until today, it now can be of use. The golden antlered hind is mine, not yours, and mine it shall remain. Hercules, standing between the pillars of the gate, listened and heard the quarrel, and wondered much as the two maidens strove for possession of the doe. Another voice fell on his ear, and with commanding accents said, The doe belongs to neither maid, O Hercules, but to the god whose shrine you see on yonder distant mount. Go rescue it and bear it to the safety of the shrine, and leave it there, a simple thing to do, O son of man. Yet, and ponder well on my words, being a son of God, you thus can seek and hold the doe. Go forth. Through the fourth gate sprang Hercules, leaving behind the many gifts received, and cumbered not himself in the swift chase which lay ahead. And from a distance the quarreling maidens watched. Artemis the fair, bending from out the moon, and Diana, beauteous huntress of the woods of God, followed the movements of the doe, and when due cause arose, they each deluded Hercules, seeking to foil his efforts. He chased the doe from point to point, and each with subtlety deceived him. And this they did time and again. Thus, for the length of a full year, the Son of Man, who is the Son of God, followed the doe from place to place, catching swift glimpses of its form, only to find that in the fastness of the deep woods it had been lost. From hill to hill and wood to wood, he hunted it until close to a quiet pool. Full length upon the untrampled grass, he saw it sleeping, wearied with its flight. With quiet step, outstretched hand, and steadfast eye, he shot an arrow towards the doe, and in its foot he wounded it. Exciting all the will of which he was possessed, he nearer drew, and yet the doe moved not. Thus he drew closer and clasped the doe within his arms, close to his heart. And Artemis and fair Diana both looked on. "The search is o'er," he chanted loud. "Into the northern darkness I was led, and found no doe. Into the deep woods I fought my way, but found no doe. And over dreary plains and arid wilderness and desert wild I struggled towards the doe, yet found it not. At each point reached, the maidens turned my steps, but still I did persist, and now the doe is mine. The doe is mine." "Not so, O Hercules," came to his ears the voice of one who stands close to the presiding one. "The doe belongs not to a son of man, though a son of God. Carry the doe to yonder distant shrine, where dwell the sons of God, and leave it there with them." "Why so, O teacher wise? The doe is mine. Mine by long search and travel. Mine likewise because I hold the doe close to my heart." "And are you not a son of God, although a son of man? And is the shrine not also your abode? And share you not the life of all who dwell therein? Bear to the shrine of God the sacred doe, and leave it there, O Son of God." Then to the holy shrine of Mycenae, Hercules bore the doe, carrying it to the center of the holy place, and there he laid it down. And as he laid it down before the Lord, he noted on its foot the wound made by an arrow from the bow he had possessed and used. The doe was his by right of search. The doe was his by right of skill and prowess of his arm. "The doe is therefore doubly mine," he said. But Artemis, standing within the outer court of the most holy place, heard his loud cry of victory and said, "Not so. The doe is mine and always been mine. I saw its form reflected in the water. I heard its feet upon the ways of the earth. I know the doe is mine, for every form is mine." The sun god spoke from out the holy place. "The doe is not yours. The doe is mine, O Artemis. Its spirit rests with me from all eternity, here in the center of the holy shrine. You may not enter here, O Artemis, but now I speak the truth. Diana, that fair huntress of the Lord, may enter for a moment and tell you what she sees." Into the shrine for one brief moment passed the huntress of the Lord, and saw the form of that which was the doe lying before the altar, seeming dead. And in distress she said, "But if its spirit rests with thee, O great Apollo, noble son of God, then know the doe is dead. The doe is slain by the man who is a son of man, though a son of God. Why may he pass within the shrine, and we await the doe out here? Because he bore the doe within his arms, close to his heart. And in the holy place the doe finds rest, and so does man. All men are mine. The doe is likewise mine, not yours, nor man's, but mine." And Hercules, returning from the test, passed through the gate again and found his way back to the teacher of his life. I have fulfilled the task set by the great presiding one. Simple it was, except for the length of time and weariness of search. I listened not to those who made their claim, nor faltered on the way. The doe is in the holy place, close to the heart of God, and likewise in the hour of need, close to my heart also. Go look again, O Hercules, my son, between the pillars of the gate. And Hercules obeyed. Beyond the gate, the landscape stretched in contours fair, and on the far horizon stood the temple of the Lord, the shrine of the sun god, with glistening battlements, whilst on a nearby hill there stood a slender fawn. Did I perform the test, O teacher wise? The fawn is back upon the hill where earlier it stood. And from the council chamber of the Lord, where sits the great presiding one, there came a voice. And again and yet again must all the sons of men, who are the sons of God, seek for the golden antlered fawn and bear it to the holy place, again and yet again. Then the teacher said to the Son of Man, who was the Son of God, labor the fourth is over, and from the nature of the test and from the nature of the doe, frequent must be the search. Forget this not, but ponder on the lesson learnt. The synthesis of this sign. Cancer is the last of what we might call the four preparatory signs, whether we are considering the involution of the soul in matter or the evolution of the aspirant as he struggles out of the human into the spiritual kingdom, being equipped with the faculty of mind in Aries and with desire in Taurus, and having arrived at the realization of his essential duality in Gemini, the incarnating human being enters through birth in Cancer into the human kingdom. Cancer is a mass sign, and the influences which pour from it are held by many esotericists to bring about the formation of the human family, of the race, the nation, and the family unit. Where the aspirant is concerned, the story is somewhat different, for in these four signs, he prepares his equipment and learns to utilize it. In Aries, he grips his mind and seeks to bend it to his needs, learning mental control. In Taurus, the mother of illumination, he receives his first flash of that spiritual light, which will grow increasingly more brilliant as he nears his goal. In Gemini, he not only appreciates the two aspects of his nature, but the immortal aspect begins to increase at the expense of the mortal. Now in Cancer, he gets his first touch of that more universal sense, which is the higher aspect of the mass consciousness. Equipped, therefore, with a controlled mind, a capacity to register illumination, an ability to control his immortal aspect, and intuitively to recognize the kingdom of spirit. He is ready now for the greater work. In the next four signs, which we might regard as the signs of physical plane struggle for achievement, we have portrayed for us the tremendous battle through the medium of which the self-conscious individual, emerging out of the mass in Cancer, knows himself to be the individual in Leo, the potential Christ in Virgo, the aspirant endeavoring to balance the pair of opposites in Libra, and the one who overcomes illusion in Scorpio. These are the four signs of crisis and of stupendous endeavor. In them, all the illumination intuition and soul power of which Hercules, the aspirant, is capable, are utilized to the uttermost. These have their reflection, too, on the involutionary arc, and a similar sequence of unfoldment can be traced. The soul achieves individuality in Leo, becomes the nurturer of ideas and of potential capacities in Virgo, swings violently from one extreme to the other in Libra, and is subjected to the disciplining effect of the world of illusion and form in Scorpio. In the final 4 signs, we have the signs of achievement. The aspirant has worked out of the world of glamour and of form, and in his consciousness is free from their limitations. Now, he can be the archer in Sagittarius, going straight for his goal. He can be the goat in Capricorn, scaling the mount of initiation. Now he can be the world worker in Aquarius and the world savior in Pisces. Thus, he can sum up in himself all the gains of the preparatory period and of the fiercely fought battles in the 4 signs of strenuous activity. And in these 4 final signs demonstrate the gains achieved and the powers developed. This brief summation of the signs as they affect Hercules will serve to give some idea of the wonderful synthesis of the picture and of the steady progression and of the controlled unfolding of the various forces which play their subtle parts in bringing about the changes in the life of man. 3 words summarize the objective awareness or the conscious aspect of the evolving human being: instinct, intellect, intuition. The sign which we are now studying is predominantly the sign of instinct, but the sublimation of instinct is the intuition. In the same way as matter has to be lifted up into heaven, so instinct has to be likewise lifted up. And when it has been thus transcended and transmuted, it manifests as intuition. This was symbolized by the doe. Their intermediate stage is that of the intellect. The great need of Hercules now is to develop his intuition and to become familiar with that instantaneous recognition of truth and reality, which is the high prerogative and potent factor in the life of a liberated son of God. The meaning of this story: Hercules had been sent to capture the golden horned doe, or the hind. The word hind comes from an old Gothic word meaning that which must be seized. In other words, that which is elusive and difficult to secure. This doe was sacred to Artemis, the goddess of the moon. But Diana, the huntress of the heavens, the daughter of the sun, also claimed it, and there was a quarrel as to the ownership. Hercules accepted the charge of Eurystheus and sent out to capture the gentle hind. He was a whole year hunting going from one forest to another, just catching sight of it, and then again losing it. Month after month went by, and he never could catch and hold it. Success at last crowned his efforts, and he seized the doe, flung it over his shoulder, held it close to his heart, and carried it to the sacred temple, where he laid it down before the altar in the holy place. Then he stood back, pleased with his success. This is one of the shortest of the stories, but though we are told very little, this labor, when considered thoughtfully, is one of profound and outstanding interest, and the lesson it holds is of deep importance. There is no success for the aspirant until he has transmuted instinct into intuition, nor is there right use of the intellect until the intuition is brought into play, interpreting and extending the intellect and bringing realization. Then instinct is subordinated to both.